We're coming up at the end of 2025, and to celebrate, I want to talk about my top 25 gaming characters of this century. You're watching Rayl Deal Games, and I make a variety of gaming content every Wednesday and Friday, and if you like the video today, you may like my other and future work. Consider smashing that like button, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell after you've finished. Now, obviously, I may have played several hundreds of games from this century, but I have not played every single game, I have not liked every single game that has been mainstream, and I very well may have forgotten a great character that you think should be on the list. I want to hear what your favorite characters from this century are as well. So when I don't include one of them, because it's a matter of when, not if, we're talking about thousands of potential characters here. Not all of them can make the list. Some of them I may have not even remembered. When it happens, leave a comment below and let's talk about it. Hello guys, this is Editing Rayl here. I made a mistake with this video where I included a game released in 2000. Its United States release date was November 14th, 2000, so it's close. But it technically should not be on a list like this. It should be on a list of like games of the last century, not this century. So it's a little mistake, but since it's only one entry, I hope you don't mind. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in with number 25, the narrator from Star Wars Battlefront 2 2005. So the narrator from the main campaign of Battlefront 2 is a very interesting one because you technically start on the side of the good guys within the Clone Wars, but eventually you turn to the bad guys in the Empire, and you really don't get to see this kind of like more real look at the clones from this particular franchise. I mean, within the Clone Wars TV show, Rex and the others, I don't really get the sense that they are really clones because they're just too good, right? The clones do heinous, awful things that are reprehensible and morally bankrupt because of the Empire and the way that they are genetically programmed. And I think this campaign from Star Wars Battlefront 2, which basically no one ever talks about, really demonstrates that through the narrator and makes him one of my favorite characters of this century. Number 24 is going to be Anatoly Tredenko, Tim Curry's character from Command & Conquer Red Alert 3. This guy is so funny. Like, Tim Curry, great actor, does wonderful with what he's given here, but this particular character in Red Alert 3 is just incredibly funny. The space monologue where he's going to go to space to avoid capitalism is just a very funny and hammy moment, and it's one of these things where the bad acting of Red Alert 3 is like intentional. The FMVs are supposed to have a very B-C quality cheesy feel to them, and I just really love this particular character from this game. Number 23 is going to be Ellie from The Last of Us. Now, honestly, if I was looking at just the first game, she would be higher because I think Ellie in the first game is really good. But I do think Ellie goes through some serious character assassination in part 2 that makes her incredibly unlikable and one of the most unlikable characters from that entire game. And I think this even permeated the TV show where Ellie is like the most unlikable character in that show in the second season as well. And you know, I think this is a real big problem with The Last of Us, how Ellie, you know, out of nowhere is just incredibly terrible. And I know it's not entirely out of nowhere because Joel died and it's a revenge thing, but I feel like there were so many other ways to show her pain that wouldn't have made her so unlikable as well. Now, if they come up with a third one, I honestly don't know how they're going to change her to make her somebody anybody actually wants to see on screen. Because for me, very much, I don't care to see Ellie again personally because of that, how The Last of Us Part 2 goes. But Ellie herself is a really good character and very fun and really does set the tone of the first game, so much so that I think she's the reason The Last of Us was so successful. She's the reason the first game was so iconic, and as a result, she had to be here somewhere. Number 22 is going to be Sazh from Final Fantasy XIII. He's actually one of the only, and like the first, older JRPG main character. I mean, Auron exists before him, who was older. There's a couple examples, but Sazh really feels like the real, true representation of that. You know, Auron looks really, really old. He's in his 30s. I don't look anything like Auron, right? But Saz really is a believably older character. He's a father before the wave of fathers in gaming began with The Last of Us and God of War 2018. It really started taking that movement forward. And I think a lot of his process through Final Fantasy 13 is very believable. And by the end of my time with that game, he was my favorite character for sure. And part of the reason I don't like 13 too is because of how Saz is like everything with him is just not like it's kind of thrown to the wind for 13-2 in a lot of ways. And I just like he is just such a good character, and I just every time he was on screen I was very, very happy to see his character development. And he goes through a lot of very low moments, like that time where he almost commits suicide, which was a very iconic moment of 13 for me personally. And he's kind of like this emotional rock for the group, and I really like him for that reason. Number 21 is going to be CJ from GTA San Andreas. I love CJ and San Andreas. I mean, it's no shocker to me that the opening line of the game is so iconic within the gaming community, because it is such a relatable moment. I think a lot of ways CJ is like the most relatable character of that whole game, with some of his side comments in cutscenes, and the way that the player can manipulate his appearance and stuff like that was a really, really cool feature for 2004. And yeah, CJ, just by the end of the game and by the way his character changes over the course of San Andreas, makes him one of the best characters of the century in my personal opinion. Number 20 is going to be Bastila from KOTOR. So this is the Jedi Knight ally that you get fairly early on. I think she's a pretty well-written character in terms of what BioWare put out for this century. And her conflict between good and evil is very fun to follow, and I think Bastila herself is the reason to play KOTOR in the modern era, which otherwise is kind of a rough game to play from the gameplay side of things these days. I don't personally hate it myself, but I can definitely see the argument for how other games like Dragon Age Origins expanded the gameplay better, and how it's even not as good as what came before with Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 in the gameplay department. But the writing is really quite special for this particular character, I think. Number 19 is going to be BJ Blazkowicz from the Wolfenstein series. Now, I'm specifically talking about the Machine Games' version of Blazkowicz here. This is such a cool character in the way that he philosophizes in between cutscenes or in cutscenes and stuff like that. And just the things that he does are just really cool, and I really enjoy this character. And, you know, the last one came out a long time ago, the last proper one. We're not going to talk about Young Bloods here. The last proper Wolfenstein game came out a long time ago. Where is Wolfenstein 3, the new something? Where is it? I really, really need it now. Number 18 is absolutely going to show you that this is my list, and it is catering to my interests, because it is going to be Shujinko from Mortal Kombat Deception. I think Shujinko is an overhated character within the Mortal Kombat community, and just in general, because, I mean, there's a lot of kookiness to the voice acting and production quality of Deception that I think adds a certain charm to the game, but other people don't agree. I get it. I like it. Other people don't. I mean, I put Tim Curry's character out here. I like a little bit of goofiness in my games, to be honest with you. But Shujinko, I think, is a very interesting character because he is like 14 or something. I'm kind of blanking his specific age recording right now, but he's very, very young. He's in his teens when he is told that he is the champion of the Elder Gods, when he's given a godlike power to copy the fighting styles of anybody, and sent on a quest for what he believes to be God's given quest. And in this way, he's kind of gaslit by Onaga over the course of the game into giving him all the power he needs to reshape the realms. And Shujinko's quest ends with him defeating Onaga. And I think the best ending for Shujinko and for this story is how Raiden killed him right afterwards. I think that's a kind of sad and sordid end to the character, but I think it works for what Mortal Kombat's dark tone was going for. And so Shujinko had to be on here somewhere because I love this character to pieces. Number 17 is going to be Cortana from the Halo series. So Cortana kind of kairotically relevant now with AI and how AI romance is becoming a thing, which is something I never thought I was going to live through myself. I think one of the big critiques of, I believe Halo 4 it was was the romance that buds between Master Chief and Cortana. I think a lot of people did not like that back when Halo 4 came out. I may be thinking of the wrong game, but I think Cortana herself is a great character. Yeah, I think she gets a lot of development over the game. She's really feels kind of snarky in the first game, to me at least, and then over time her caring side really starts to develop and she becomes this kind of character that you want to see more of. Number 16 for me is going to be Majima from the Yakuza series. I think specifically Yakuza Zero Majima is the one I like the most. I think this particular version of Majima has so many cool things that he does and is a very emotionally present character in a way that he's not throughout the rest of the series. In fact, the Majima of Zero is almost completely a different character than the Majima that exists elsewhere. And alongside this same trend is going to be number 15, Ichiban from the Yakuza series. You know, I put 2 Yakuza series entries on here because I think these are the 2 best characters of the Yakuza series. I know Kiryu, a lot of people really love Kiryu. I think he's a great character, but I feel like Ichiban and Majima show that kind of goofy side of Yakuza way better, and they also have some insanely heartfelt character moments. So Ichiban in this particular case, I think I would go with the Like a Dragon version of Ichiban here, maybe the Infinite Wealth, but either way, Ichiban's going to be number 15 for sure for me. Number 14, this one's going to get me hate because it's another Last of Us entry, and it's specifically going to be Abby. So Abby is possibly the most hated character from The Last of Us Part 2 back when it was, new. But I think a lot of that is maybe people who were, Druckmann did this because intentionally. He wanted you to hate Abby from the beginning. The story structure of The Last of Us Part 2 is crap. I don't like it at all. There's so many things about that game I would change from the writing standpoint. But when you take Abby's slice of the game and you separate it from the emotional manipulation that Druckmann is trying to put the player through to elicit a specific emotional reaction, when you separate her out from that, I think you can really look at her and say that she's really quite a good and compelling character. She goes through a real character arc of hating the Scars, the Seraphites, and then taking care of one. And the reason that I'm going to watch season 3 of The Last of Us HBO show is because it's covering the Abby section, which I think was the only good part of The Last of Us Part 2. I mean, other than the rattlesnake section at the end with Ellie, that was really cool from a gameplay perspective, but in terms of story stuff, I felt like Abby's section is the section of The Last of Us Part 2 that's actually good. And I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that. Some people are going to agree with me. I think the people who actually do go through The Last of Us Part 2 with a cool head, separated from the controversies surrounding the game in 2020, separated from the political culture war. I think the culture war is what really harmed The Last of Us Part 2's image and Abby's image. I think this particular character is way better written than a lot of people gave her credit for, and she's well acted too. So, yeah, I think Abby is somebody that if a Part 3 ever came out, I actually would like to see more of. And I would like to see her interact with Lev a little bit more, too. Number 13 for me is going to be the Ivory King from Dark Souls 2. I love the story of the Ivory King. I think this is a wonderful character with the way that he accepts a daughter of chaos as his wife, knowing that she is evil from the moment of her birth and creation, yet he believes that she can overcome her evil nature despite the fact that it is coded into her very magical makeup, and the fact that he built a whole city to keep the chaos at bay and fights it to his very last, corrupting the very essence of his soul to protect the world from the old chaos. This is such a great character, and out of all of From Software's works, Dark Souls 2 is the one I want to see remade from the ground up again. Even just maybe from a graphical standpoint to make it look more beautiful. And yeah, because the Ivory King is such a great character, and I think more people need to experience him. Number 12 is going to be General Radon from Elden Ring. So General Radon is such a cool character. I love the way that he learns gravity magic so that he can keep riding his horse, and the way that he protects his horse in the boss fight with him. I also think he's a very tragic character with the way that he's turned into Miquella's consort in the DLC. Such a fun boss fight from the mechanical side of things on both fights, but from a character standpoint, he's really, really quite good as well. Number 11 for me is going to be Sif from Dark Souls. Sif is the representative from Dark Souls because of that extra cutscene they added when you do the DLC first and find Sif afterwards. You see, Sif recognizes who you are if you saved him in the DLC, and he still wants to kill you anyway. And the reason why Sif ever wants to kill the player character, because he's not a villain. Sif is not a villain at all. The whole reason the player has to kill Sif is to get the Abyss Walker ring of Artorias. And the whole reason Sif protects that ring to his dying breath when he's limping, because you've dealt so much damage and he's limping and still trying to kill you, because he knows that death is a better fate than being corrupted by the abyss. He wants to save the player character from that, even when the player character is a stranger. In the DLC, you get to really see that, because even though he recognized the character and cares for them, he's still going to kill them anyway. And he even howls at the moon with a forlorn bit of pain to show that too. So Sif is absolutely going to hit here for sure. And as an added thing from the mechanics of the boss fight, this is like one of the only boss fights in the entire history of gaming that actually gets weaker as you move into later stages. Usually boss fights get harder as the fight goes on, and they go through a second phase that gives them more attacks. Sif is the opposite. He loses all mobility, he's slower, he's easier to kill when you get past his first phase. And this is done because it plays into the story themes of Sif and why he's such a great character. Number 10 for me is going to be the Maiden Estrella from Demon's Souls. This is the only boss in the Souls series that I can think of where you can just win by talking to them. And I think that plays into her character as an archdemon extremely well, because the Maiden Estrella shows that the archdemons don't have to be evil. They can have elements of good to them, who they are. And she shows that with how she cares for the people that live within the filth. And she cares for what I think is an allegory for the people of poverty, and how the church lambasts her for this, for being true to the church's teachings. And I really love her for that particular reason. She as a character, I think, is so just amazing, and I love her. Number 9 is going to be Dante from the Devil May Cry franchise, so specifically his iterations in 3 and 5. He has just so many cool cutscenes. He's a fun character to play. He's fun to have on the screen. This is just a fun entry, all in all. Like, a lot of the ones I just talked about, they're like emotional, sad, and dark. This one's just fun, and that's all I have to say about Dante. He's fun. I hope we get DMC6 soon. Number 8 for me is going to be Vivi from Final Fantasy IX. So Vivi is the poster boy of Final Fantasy IX. He wasn't back in 2000. He's kind of that intro character that you start out with, but I think when a lot of people think of Final Fantasy IX, they think of Vivi. And of all the characters in Final Fantasy IX to get the most fan artwork, it's probably Vivi. And it makes sense because Vivi is incredibly an important character for the story. He often adds levity to scenes, but he also has this existential crisis that really plays into existentialism and our fear of existence, like trying to figure out what existence is. And I think that's why Vivi is so iconic from Final Fantasy and from Final Fantasy IX. Number 7 for me is going to be Tali'Zorah Voss Normandy from the Mass Effect trilogy. This is my favorite female romanceable option from the Mass Effect series. I think the Quarians are an incredibly interestingly designed species, and she specifically just has a lot of really, really good romance moments, and the way that she's willing to sacrifice her life and health for romance is just really sets her up as best girl from this game for me, at least. Number 6 is going to be Garrus Vakarian from the Mass Effect trilogy as well. Great romance option too if you are femshep or if you are gayshep. It doesn't matter. Either way, he's such a great character, and there are so many really cool moments with him. I very much like the sniping contest moment, I think, in Mass Effect 3. If I'm remembering right, it's been a while since I played. But yeah, Garrus Vakarian had to be on here somewhere. I think everybody who's played Mass Effect loves Garrus Vakarian, even if he is not the romance choice for that particular game. Everybody loves him. Number 5 is going to be Arthur Morgan from RDR2. Yeah, this is just a really well-acted character. Really, really cool to see his process of flow throughout the game, and at the end of the game it ends with his death, and that is such a heartfelt moment, and his death is caused by his actions as an outlaw. He wouldn't have gotten tuberculosis if he wasn't shaking down people for money. And he can never make up for how he ruined that man's life and the life of his wife, who was forced into being a lady of the night, which is not good in the Wild West. Not good at all. Yeah, he can't ever make up for that, and you can go through a side quest to do your best to make up for it, but at the end of the day, he dies a redeemed man, but a redeemed man that still has had a very big negative impact on the world, and I think that makes Arthur Morgan a very compelling character, and one that I think we all love who've played RDR2. Number 4 is going to be Alistair from Dragon Age Origins. So this is one of your first companions in Dragon Age Origins, and definitely my pick for most interesting BioWare character of all time. There are so many ways that you can interact with Alistair throughout the game, and yeah, this character is just amazing, and every plot line that has to do with him is really, really cool. And I think Alistair on his own is justification enough to play through Dragon Age Origins at least 3 times. Number 3 for me is going to be Verso from Expedition 33. So Verso is very interesting because the Verso that you see is a painted facsimile of the real Verso who is dead. And I think this adds a existentialism to Expedition 33 that is quite awesome in a lot of ways. And Verso's ending in the game is kind of cathartic in a lot of ways. It really makes us question state-assisted suicide or euthanasia, because that's kind of what Verso wants. He wants to die. His real body is dead. His soul is trapped within the painting and forced to paint forever. And it really is a weight and a burden upon Verso. And yeah, I think it really makes him a character that we all can empathize with. And even when you do his side, though, it comes at the cost of deleting Lune and Ciel and forcing Mael back into a body that she doesn't want to live in. And talking about Mael, number 2 is Mael. A lot of Expedition 33 is Mael's processing of pain and dealing with her grief and guilt at Verso's death. And Verso, in a lot of ways throughout the game, is trying to get Mael to understand that you have to let people go. You can't hold on to the past forever. And that definitely plays into what he wants from the end of his life, but Mael doesn't want that. She doesn't want to go back to the real world in her body where she can't speak and she has horrible burns and is missing an eyeball. There's no life for her there. And so she wants to stay in Verso's painted world because Verso very clearly is her favorite sibling. And he's dead. She doesn't want to let go. And if you take her ending to its conclusion, she forces Verso to keep painting against his will and takes autonomy away from him just so that she can live in her painted perfect world. And it's sad in that way too, because you know that she's not letting go and that she will eventually die as well, because you can't stay in a painting forever, which means Renoir in a lot of ways was right about the situation. And that means that both endings in Expedition 33 are kind of bad for different reasons. Like bad in the sense that they're bad for a character. I don't mean bad in the sense that they are low quality. They are high quality endings through and through. Mael is just such a good character, and the ending of hers and for Verso from Expedition 33 is going to sit in my head for a very, very long time. But the number 1 character from this century of gaming, for me, is Yuna from Final Fantasy X. I simply love Yuna. I think her journey as a summoner and how she's willing to sacrifice her life for Spira is wonderful. She's a sacrificial lamb that is doing it for the right reasons, even if she doesn't know that it won't change anything, at first anyway. It really sets her up to be this Christ-like figure, this Christ archetype character in Final Fantasy X, but then it's an inversion of that archetype as well, and that trope, because at the end of the game, she doesn't sacrifice herself. It is instead Tidus who has to, in place of her, to save her. And there's just so many like religious themes and genius character moments in Final Fantasy X with Yuna that she had to be number 1 for me. There was no chance she was not going to be number 1 for me. Yeah, so Yuna, number 1 gaming character of this century for me. But, you know, this was 25 characters of literally thousands that exist from this century. I have no doubt that I left off one of your favorites. I would be shocked if I didn't. So let me know what it is in the comments below, and let's have a conversation about that. While you're down there, consider smashing the like button, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell. I make new gaming videos every Wednesday and Friday about a variety of gaming subjects, and following me is the only way that you might find your next favorite game. If you have a moment right now even, maybe one of the videos on the screen strikes your fancy. Check it out if so. Regardless of what you choose to do, thank you for keeping it real with Rayl Deal Games. I really appreciate your time today, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one.